So short bio, just to let you know who these ladies are. So Brenda is the managing director of STS. She's had her own significant exit. She advises companies in 50 million revenue plus and helps them maximize their valuation and exit. She's got a really great accounting and finance background, so she's perfect advisor for CEOs. And on the YPO International Board, she speaks at all the YPO conferences. Absolutely incredible. Natalie Nichols, co-founder of Concertina and EGS, growth mentor, again, over $6 billion in annual revenue, and is really focused on business for good, an incredible growth advisor. And again, I actually am a client, and I can sing her praises all day long. So a couple questions as we get started here. STS is renowned for its expertise in maximizing valuations and achieving higher exits. So talk to us about some of the key factors you focus on to achieve this.
Thank you. Thank you for including us here today. It's an honor to be here on stage with you. So I feel like Tamara gave away, so much great advice. So what makes our approach to an exit different is, first of all, you're working with someone who's been in the seat of the founder, owners of the business. And we use that as leverage to learn about what makes your company really special. Every company has unique strategic drivers. And I think a lot of times when you go to market, there's a process that misses that. You're only looking at EBITDA and revenue. And those things are important, right? Because we have to, I love date, sex, marriage. We have to be attractive, to a pool of buyers. And EBITDA, revenue, those things are attractive. Those are going to draw an initial interest. But what we're really going to leverage is what makes your business special. And that can be so many different things, right? That can be your customer base. If you're in manufacturing, it could be even some of the unique ways that you secure raw materials or distribution. That can actually be your brand, or how you sell. And we spend time to get to know what those things are. I'm working right now with a supercar dealership, and what's unique about that business is that they have a U.S. protection from a franchise perspective, right? And those are things that could just get lost. And so we're really focused on understanding and then articulating that to a pool of global potential buyers. So our process would never rely on the ideal buyer being in your industry or even in the same country that you operate. There are tons of reasons why it's attractive to buy businesses across the world, but the US does present unique opportunities. And so we're thinking really strategically in aligning around how to tell the right story so that there's lots of interest, lots of people falling in love, and that we're going to exceed multiples by going beyond just a financial multiple, really looking at that strategic multiple to exceed what you would expect in the industry.
Fantastic. So Natalie, Tamara just shared the model for maximizing valuation, increasing EBITDA, driving growth, and creating predictable revenue. So you've done this for dozens of companies, right? Can you walk us through the process?
Sure, thank you, Shane, and great to be here with you, Brenda. Again, very simply, starting with the end in mind, what is your goal? Unless you have a goal, it's very hard to track a path to get there. So we start with the goal, and then we're very big on strategy. We see so many times when you go into a company, there is no clear strategy as to who the customer is, what the customer actually needs, how you produce the product for that. So we start with that strategy piece, then we look at the most appropriate processes that need to be put in play that can be repeated using people, processes, and technology, because we can really leverage tech a lot in what we do. And then we put the people in, and then we do the build, optimize, and scale. We need to build it, we need to test it, then we need to scale it once we've optimized the things that really work. And there's just not enough focus on those things is typically what I see. A lot of things are hit and miss. there's a lot of trial and error, or this person worked really well, when in actual fact you can have a whole team working really well if you have consistent processes. It's no different than having a sporting team. You have to have your playbooks that team is going to win with. So that's what we put in play then. And then we're in the position then to be able to pass that across generally after about 6 to 9 months and say, hey Brenda, hey Wayne, hey STS, we're now in a position where we've got this company and they're considering an exit. And they're already on that pathway to that position where they are very attractive for a potential buyer.
What did you call her last night at the table? SOP queen, right? Standard operating procedure, right? Just documentation, consistency.
Again and again. As Tamara says, and this is the bit that I struggle with, you've got to do it till it's really boring. And, boring is really good for creating that level of focus. And then once you've got that, so it's muscle. I mean, it's muscle memory. There's a lot of athletes in this room. I can see Arizona is a big sporting capital, and it's all about muscle memory. It's just doing it time and time again and getting better and stronger at doing it. And that way you're ingraining those really important learnings in those important disciplines into the way that you do things.
And all of that work would be seen as a tremendous strategic driver. I mean, that kind of predictive, I think the end result was predictive revenue, right? Like revenue you can rely on, it's repeatable. That type of infrastructure would be seen as, I think, very valuable to the right buyer. Even to the point where I think you mentioned this, Tamara, they would buy for that. That could be reason for a purchase.
So Brenda, Tamara talked about kind of the prevailing market conditions, right? Constrained capital, decreasing valuations. So give us your perspective on exiting during that type of market. And then anybody that's preparing for an exit in 12 to 18 months, kind of your advice to them on what to start doing now.
So I love this question. Has anyone ever, I'll just say for us, I sold my first business in 2016. There was really nothing about the environment that was super attractive, right? But what I was actually thinking ahead and had some fear around was what could have been some really big changes that were occurring with Obamacare. So we were a healthcare-based business. We were focused on workplace medicine. And we weren't going to be able to pivot, if there were ever consolidation in insurance between like work comp and private, let's say. That didn't happen, fortunately. But it was the kind of jolt we needed to think about, were we really positioned to remain competitive? So this question around like, when is the environment perfect? No one will ever know, right? I think what's more important is when is the timing right for you, right? And so if you're building with an end in mind, which I love that that's the invitation that we're getting here, then you're building for a moment. And yeah, there are times where we actually pause a process because we're not getting the reception that we need. But that's not because money's more expensive, right? That's probably because there's a disconnect between what we and the ownership thought were valuable and what the potential buyers are really looking for. But you can learn a lot in that, right? Because our process is a bit like that dating where we're, dating with the buyers, right? We're asking more questions and listening than we are trying to convey information because we want to position this opportunity so it's really exciting and unique and one that they can't let slip through. So yes, capital is more expensive. Private equity deals might be slowing down. Our primary buyer is not private equity. We'll consider that in a process, but only if they're willing to come in at a strategic multiple, not just a financial one. And there's been so much capital that's been waiting to be deployed that is out there. And so I wouldn't use kind of the fear that our media, I think, generally instills in us daily around a looming recession or higher cost of capital. If you're running your business well and you're hitting these milestones and you're ready, then that's the right time, for us. And when you're thinking about, I think the second part of your question was like 12 to 18 months out, I think it's the perfect time to start talking to who you're going to work with. I know I've sold a house on my own. It was probably not a good idea. It was when I didn't have a lot of other things to probably spend as much time and energy on, and it probably didn't yield me the best result. You're going to likely do well and better with having a partner, and whether it's us or someone else, we always encourage our potential clients to talk to other groups. But having someone where this is all we do, right? This is all you do, this is all we do, on your side, and particularly, we're only a sell side representative. We're only working with businesses selling versus both sides, that can present a conflict. So I'd say it's the right time to start having those conversations, because that partner you choose will likely give you specific tailored advice that will help improve your chances of something extraordinary.
Absolutely. So Natalie, you're very upfront about businesses not being dependent on third-party agencies for tactical marketing. Why do you believe it's critical to have in-house capabilities when it comes to marketing and lead gen?
Yes, I'm not the friend of agencies. I have sacked many of them. In fact, I've sacked more than I can count. The reason being, it's really, really simple. If you outsource your growth to a third-party agency for marketing or ads, you are outsourcing your growth. You are not in control. And I would guarantee that there's a lot of people in this room today that would have horror agency stories that they've had. How many agencies on average have you all gone through? Probably lots. And the vast majority just are very focused on small things. And what we really want to do is change that perspective. We want to put you back in control of your growth. We want to be able to give you processes that work. We want to be able to give you technology and people that are also going to ensure that those processes are enacted and executed on. Something that you can then control, and then, as Tamara said, you can dial up that growth when and how you need that to be. That's not something that you can do when you have ad agencies that are incentivized by ad spend, because they're looking after their pocket, not yours. So the vast majority of marketing agencies are not going to do you a solid. In actual fact, they're going to be anything but that for you. So I would absolutely encourage you to take control of your growth and look to bringing all of this sort of stuff in-house where you can control it. And the reason that they can get away with what they do is because most people aren't across all of the acronyms, all of the nuances that go into marketing. And there's about 12 different areas that make up marketing. And for simplicity's sake, we can break that into 3 areas. One is active lead generation, one bucket. So the campaign that Tamara ran you through, that's a great example of active lead generation. It could be other sorts of typical funnel campaign, and I am getting into a little detail here. The second thing would be organic growth that you want to focus on. So social content, SEO and PR. PR and SEO, they work really well to get the ROI on PR. A lot of people have probably spent $10K a month in here with a PR agency and wondered what they spent the money on. Well, you really need to couple that with your SEO to get that to get the ROI there. And then the third thing that we look at is other traffic sources. Maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's a YouTube channel, maybe it's a trade show, events, etc. And that all depends upon what's comfortable to your business. But again, it all starts with a strategy. It starts with bringing that in-house and creating those capabilities in there.
And I think it came up around, sometimes you grow so fast, what if you have to dial back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You do have to, well, you have to, not so much, you always want to keep it ticking over, but you're not just putting your foot flat down on the accelerator and saying, go, go, go. We just ease up a little bit for a bit. And it could be that we just, reduce the spend on a particular campaign, or we just say go easy on a particular target market. But you have that ability to dial that up and down once you have repeatable processes in place. Until then, you've got that horrible feeling every night as you go to bed, wondering, how's my pipeline? Oh, it's looking great now, but it's not going to be so great later on. I remember having this conversation with an EO company back in November of 2022. And I said, so what are we doing about repeatable sales and marketing? We're fine. Our pipeline is absolutely rock solid for the next 8 months. We can't take on any more clients. What did they do? They forgot to keep selling. So what do you think happened at the end of that 8 months? They fell off a cliff. They're not in a good place now. And so now they're scrambling and they're putting off staff, they're doing all sorts of things because they took their foot so far off the gas that they're now in a hole, and now they're having to ramp up again. It's much easier just to keep it rolling consistently, and then as you have a seasonal peaks and trough, which you always have in the vast majority of businesses, you can adjust that growth accordingly.
Fantastic. So, Brenda, you touched on this, on when's the ideal time to start talking to STS about exit? What should the companies in the room be doing as they are preparing? And then finally, if you don't mind, what makes STS different than some of the other M&A firms?
Thank you. So first part of your question was when. We're always trying to talk to entrepreneurs, family businesses, business owners. If we're not the right fit, we're pretty quick to try to get to that realization, and we're wanting to get you somewhere where you'll be well taken care of. Because there can be a number of factors where we're not an ideal fit. Some of it can be size, but we want to be able to feel confident that we can deliver on our promise. It is great to talk to people before they're saying, I'm ready to go to market, because you may feel like you're ready to go to market, but there are often some can be quick things that we can think about that might position you to be a stronger when going to market. So for example, I think you said this, Tamara, was don't be necessary. If you're the founder, right? I'm the founder of the business, but the business still relies on me heavily for name, fill in the blank. Our process is not going to yield you the best result because you will likely not convey in our process. Okay, so we're giving you the whole apple up front. We're not trying to get you to have to keep enough equity in where it's a second or a third. Our process is generally best when we're selling 100%, of a company. And in that case, you are rarely going to convey as the business owner, right? So the business needs to be able to operate, function, thrive without you. You also need strong financial support. If you have never had your books reviewed or audited, we're actually in a lot of our deals doing a pre Q of E, quality of earnings, which is more of a forward-looking. It's still a rear view mirror perspective, but even over a choice of an audit or a Q of E is going to likely come into play at our level, at that middle market transaction level. But it's great if we know in advance, and use a arm's length third party firm to conduct that work. Then we have that as part of our go-to-market, and that really strengthens our position to know that our financials are solid. And then we would want to just really understand and tell your story, right? In a way that, I use that analogy of the realtor. If you just spent all of your time and energy, excitement in refreshing your kitchen, and someone comes in and says, I hate it, you're going to immediately be turned off, right? So we're the ones that are trying to present a number of different options we think are going to be attractive to you, but then really listen for, oh, you're really looking to get into this specific geographical market. Wow, the capacity to expand, with this as your entry point is going to be really valuable for you. So our story then is really, it pivots and is bespoke to the potential acquirers. I would say another thing is that because we're going to do a global outreach campaign, this is, I think, why you would choose a firm like STS, is we're going to think creatively and run this session we call mind mapping, where we get really outside the box around who could potentially be interested in buying the company that you've built. And that can be, that can be kind of straightforward, like suppliers. In some cases, there could be customers, but there can be adjacent industries, people you've never even heard of, family offices. There could be, a curated group of private equity groups, but where we then we're not going to rely on the entry-level analyst that gets thousands of emails a week to hope our teaser pops out. We're going to go in through our relationships, our network, and actually try to get someone who's has empowered authority to be interested and kind of push this down through the process. So it's a lot more work what we do, right? We're not going to promise a super quick process. Some may yield that, but that's not going to be our promise. Our promise is going to be something really fulsome, and outreach is going to get to people that you would have never even thought about talking to, and that takes time and a huge investment on our part, because we're only motivated by what the seller's motivated by, and that's the exit. So there's really clear alignment, around who we're serving and how we win together. Yes, yeah. Well, and this was part of what drew me to STS. I don't believe that there can't be a win for everyone, right? You have to spend more time and energy to figure out and know the other party well enough to know what's a win for them. But our deals are extraordinary because there's a win for everyone, right? And in many cases, and Wade mentioned this earlier, there's also a giving component. When you actualize on the significant wealth and value you've created, there's a really unique, and sometimes we have some people in the room, sometimes a really attractive tax incentive, but to give, something that creates a legacy for the individual. So we believe all of these things are possible, and spend time, attention, and care in keeping track of all of them in our process. And I don't ever like to talk trash about others, but I just don't know of other firms that have created a business model that allows for that.
So Brenda, you touched on something interesting that a lot of us have experienced. So you talked about the founder not conveying in a lot of your exits. A lot of us have been in the situation where a non-strategic tries to acquire you. They want you to roll in 30, 40% to a buyer that doesn't know how to grow your business, right? The horror stories in YPO about this are incredible. So just touch on that again for a second. And key to having the strategics in the process. So touch on that if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, how many of you have been sitting where you are and had someone on stage talk about a first bite at an apple, second bite at an apple, and you hear these stories and you're just like, wow, that's amazing, right? I literally, and I would love if there's someone that, I know one person, and I only met her recently, who has actualized on the earnout potential. 100%, right? I mean, you get some. Does anyone know more than one person who's okay? Great. All right. Is it 5 people? Okay. So it's not. The point is it's not a lot, right? When I did our first deal, it was my dad and I. It was my dad who'd founded the business. What I said to him was, the earnout is a bonus. The earnout is a bonus, right? In that case. But what our process, so if you're looking to convey, and there can be reasons why that is attractive to a business, if you're not unlocking growth capital from within or need more than what's possible from within, a strategic alliance with a private equity firm can be possible. And there are really some great private equity firms. Our work, though, centers around typically someone building something up and that person unlikely being a great employee, frankly, right? If you've been at the top of your business and had autonomy and been responsible, right, for the sleepless nights and how you're going to fund payroll every couple of weeks and like debt covenants or whatever, right? That person is, in my experience, going to have a very difficult time transitioning to an environment where they are constrained in the way that a private equity model works. And that's not like a mystery that that's what they're asking for you to do, right? So there's this really big, they're dangling this huge incentive on the other side of it. But in our world, because we are trying to create a win for all, we just want for people to know, for business owners to know that there are alternative paths, right? And so I think it's important to look at them. We don't allow you to date around. Like if you say yes to us, like we're the only ones going to market with you. But that's why we think it's really important for you to talk to others in our space, in the mergers and acquisition space, because you have to decide what's the right fit for you. When my dad sold, he didn't really know what he was going to get up and do. He'd been the doctor that was in charge. Dr. J he'd been that for 40 years. But when the buying firm offered him $100 an hour to go in and be a doctor, he's like, I'm not getting out of bed for that. Like that's not what I'm up to anymore. And then he quickly started to unravel from this identity of needing to be the CEO, the founder, the doctor, to a partner who likes to play golf and is enjoying grandkids, So that emotional journey, I never want to skip over acknowledging. It's intense to decouple from something you've built. Now, I do think we are seeing generations that are building to sell, and that is a different way to build a business. He's in his 60s, early 70s. He didn't build to sell. He built and then found a daughter who could run it, which was she'll run it forever, and maybe there are kids that'll run it after, and that just isn't a reality that we're seeing, kind of go well, for a lot of different reasons. So a bit of a tangent, but that emotional journey is one that, Wayne and I have been in that seat. We've become, I probably a bit desensitized to it, but it's extreme, and we can be helpful, in just being empathetic to that, for our clients.
So eat the whole apple up front.
I mean, why not, right?
Okay. Fantastic.
Maintain control, right?
Yes.
There is a bigger apple and you can have all of it in our world.
So final question here. So Natalie, we've all agreed you have to have 18 players on board. You need a flexible, agile workforce, right? It needs to be cost effective. It needs to lead to that blue category of revenue generation. But in the past, we've all probably tried offshoring and had some obstacles. Walk us through why Concertina is different.
Here's a term that you all will realise: right person, right seat. So we're about, as Tamara said, finding the right people to start off with, and you have to go hunting. The good people are already occupied doing something else. And so we do a lot of shoulder tapping. And it takes time to hunt those people out. That's why we do our hire, train, deploy model. Sometimes we can find somebody quickly. Most of the time we're just generally hunting for the right people. The second thing is training. You can have a fabulous person, very, very capable, but again, you have to be able to have everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. You have to have everybody knowing the same playbook on the team, otherwise you can't execute it. So that's why we spend so much time in training. And our goal is to be the #1 training company for this sort of staffing model in the world. Because I'm a lifelong learner. A day that you don't learn something is a day wasted. So we really try to instill in all of our people the importance of learning. And we continue that not just at the beginning of their journey with us, but right throughout their time. They will do weekly sessions. They're going to have 90-day training plans that they're working with, even outside of their normal hours and what they're doing, because learning is so important. And we're moving in a very fast-paced world. What we're going to see in the next 5 years with AI and technology is going to be staggering. And it's going to be about the people that can keep up with that change of pace, or that pace of change. And then the final thing is the accountability and the actual execution piece. And that comes down to scoreboards and plans. We have to have a scoreboard to see how things are working, to see how people are performing. That's no surprises there, people. And the other thing is there has to be a clear path. Otherwise, you're back to the soft, warm body approach. Here's a person, you go run them, and good luck. Whereas having a plan is they know what they need to be doing. This is the next thing we're working on. This needs to be achieved. This needs to happen. So yeah, those are the three things that I think really make a difference.
So I'd like to thank our panelists, Brenda and Natalie. Thank you so much. If you would like to book a meeting with Brenda, the QR code is up there. If you want to talk about preparation for your exit, Natalie as well, her QR code is there, talking about obviously offshoring and EGS. And after this, as we wrap, Brenda and Wayne Bell will be over here for STS to talk to them. Natalie, RJ, and Tamara will be over here to talk to them on EGS and Concertina. So we would like to say from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for coming today. I know there's a lot going on. The weather is perfect. It was an early morning. I hope you gained something out of this to go and make an impact in your business, but also in the community. And my challenge to you is don't forget about business for good, right? Profit, but also purpose. So with that said, guys, thank you. You're invited to stay and network. Thank you, guys.